We move from place to place on streets, roads, and highways. Likewise, fish and aquatic life move between wetlands, streams, rivers, and lakes and back again. When the road we're on is blocked, we're inconvenienced into finding another route. But for fish, when their passage is blocked, often by the very roads we travel, it can be a matter of life or death because they can't get upstream to their spawning grounds. We live within the Great Lakes Basin, the world's largest freshwater system. Millions of acres and thousands of miles of streams that feed into the Great Lakes. Ozaukee County is part of the Milwaukee River watershed and Lake Michigan Basin and is home to a unique ecological effort between municipalities, businesses, homeowners, anglers, and county government called the Ozaukee County Fish Passage Program, which is part of the Planning and Parks Department. This program is successfully reconnecting waterways and restoring habitats for fish and wildlife, improving the quantity and quality of fish populations, their habitats, and our habitat too. The Fish Passage Program is a regional model that is getting everyone excited by their results.
The northern pike is the target species of the Fish Passage Program. It's a native top predator species that everybody pretty much knows. You can identify. If you've ever gone fishing, you've probably run into one either by mistake or on purpose. So it's present in the Milwaukee River watershed. It's one of the many species that have sort of been knocked down over time for a variety of reasons: poor water quality, habitat fragmentation, a lot of different reasons. But also northern pike are one of the weakest swimmers, believe it or not, of our native species. I don't know if you've ever gone fishing, you might not believe that, but they've done a lot of studies on swimming performance and leaping abilities and things like that. And since the pike is one of the weakest swimmers that we try to pass, we figure if we design all of our culvert replacements and our other projects around pike, that we can get most everything else through as well.
Within a watershed, all water features are connected. Small wetlands and tributary streams ultimately drain into bigger bodies of water, in our case, Lake Michigan. The Fish Passage Program undertakes many projects, but the first step is completing inventories. We locate where high-quality fish habitat exists, and then identify which habitats are ecologically isolated due to impediments. We then prioritize removal or remediation projects based on several criteria, including overall ecological benefit and project cost. An example of a removal project would be tearing down a dam on a river or stream. A remediation project, on the other hand, might simply be to modify a structure, like replacing a culvert that was too small, easily clogged with debris, or elevated from the stream bed to one that fish pass through easily.
I never thought of this much as a fish passage because for years this was just an old farm road going back to the last field. And it turned out there were 6 culverts in there that weren't adequate to handle the flow of water. I just knew this was likely to be an improvement, and it has been. I mean, it not only looks better, it's just as functional as far as getting into the back fields. It's just an improvement for the fish and all the habitat. I see frogs now in here and turtles and stuff that I didn't see as regularly before. Got a kick and called the guys to tell them when I saw my first fish resting in the shadow caused by the bridge, so it was good.
The program works with many different private landowners on identifying and removing impediments. In most cases, if not all, the impediment was put into place for the landowner to be able to cross the stream. So removing this impediment doesn't mean the landowner has no more access to the other side of the stream. We're pretty good at finding creative ways in order to create fish passage conditions as well as allowing the landowner to still utilize that passage.
I think probably the biggest thing for people to recognize is that there can be these habitat fragmentation issues in areas that you don't even know or you don't even think are worthwhile. Like, we have one stream in Ozaukee County that's by far our biggest northern pike producer. It's Uleo Creek in Ozaukee County. You know, in the springtime you can tell it's flooded, beautiful wetlands everywhere, the pike are happy. But by the middle of summer, in some areas it's almost bone dry. And people would drive over that creek and think, oh, that's just a ditch, that's whatever. But it's important to recognize the ecological value of all these little isolated portions and the fact that it can be right in your own backyard.
I've always been told from the older folks in the neighborhood that this used to be a place that fish come and spawn. That they would come up from the Milwaukee River and come all the way up the Uleo Creek here, and that as kids people would be able to catch northern and things in here. And years ago this creek was dredged. At one point it was kind of a flow of water with undulating channels and various things, and what happened was farmers wanted to dry the land out, so they dredged it, and it's a straight ditch now, where in the springtime we'll have large rainfalls and it'll fill up, but then in the summertime it'll dry up. And so part of what this project is to bring back the natural course of the creek.
With Mequon-Thiensville, where we actually addressed another community concern. In this case, we have a local dam on the Milwaukee River, and we looked at alternatives to fish passage at the dam. So obviously one was dam removal, which the community discussed, but another one, and it was a unique opportunity, was put in a fishway. Very different than what others have heard about fish ladders out west. It's not so much a staircase, is it that we created a natural stream channel that would make up the elevation difference of the dam.
Politically, there wasn't a lot of will to remove the dam. We needed an idea to fix up the area of an old mill pond, and the mill pond itself was somewhat of a nuisance with weeds and bugs and things, but we also needed to return the river to a healthy state as if there were no dam here. So by a fish passage, the native fish can pass through the system over the dam and get to their natural spawning areas.
I used to fish for steelhead around the island. You had to really be careful wading, because the way that dam was built, the fish would be there. You could watch them try to clear it, but you couldn't get out more than maybe 4 or 5 feet from the point of the island, because she really dropped down, and dropped down quick. So yeah, it's changed a lot, and it's all for the better as far as I'm concerned.
Fishing is a huge recreational and sort of tourism industry for the state as a whole. A lot of these communities along the river that we have in Ozaukee County, they depend on things like the tourism angle. They identify themselves as a river community, water-based community, and a lot of the recreational pursuits that go along with that are, they're hand in hand. We do a lot of things where we encourage anglers to get in touch with us. We have some of our fish tags that actually are on the outside of the fish, and we encourage people to call in and tell us when they catch those fish and help us track fish movement across the watershed. One of the biggest efforts that we undertake every summer and fall is our what we call our electrofishing surveys. It's largely a volunteer effort, and then our staff is there to oversee and supervise and everything. But it's a fish monitoring approach that allows you to basically wade through the stream, collect fish in nets as you're going, use an electrical field to draw the fish towards you, and basically allows us to get a sense for what the fish community is like within a certain stretch of the river.
In the construction and the years post-construction, the Fish Passage Program has been directly involved. It's been a great relationship. I don't think this would have happened the way it did without us working side by side. Fish Passage brought in the available staff and resources to manage the contracts, to do the engineering, and to manage the construction, which, for a village of our size, something like this isn't always a priority project because you've got roads to build and sewers to fix. The Fish Passage is twofold. They do all of that, but they also do the monitoring of the river to see the health and quality and quantity of the fish, both upstream and downstream of the fishway, and the fish passing through.
We are fortunate that we've been able to leverage a significant amount of private, local, state, and federal grant funding. And anytime we work with landowners, we try and minimize the fiscal impact to them. That is the case with businesses too. So a lot of these businesses are actually legally liable for some of those impediments. And so we're trying to help alleviate that liability by helping fund some of these projects with local businesses, local landowners.
Well, you know, you can imagine when you first get contacted by a representative of the government saying that they'd like to talk to you about your land, your first reaction isn't this is likely to be a positive development. You know, I was apprehensive, but I did see it was from the Fish Passage Program, and I was aware of it because I read the articles about the work they were doing trying to do a fish passage around the dam in Thiensville. To my, I won't say surprise, but certainly to my great satisfaction, the experience ended up being positive throughout.
We always talk about how this program is a model, essentially, for other counties, other municipalities, other regions to really jump in and go with. You know, there's going to be, whether it's county governments, state governments, whoever, you know, nonprofit groups that are going to be trying to do these types of projects. And not to sound biased or anything, but I think that the Ozaukee program has really figured out how to get these things done right, and we use all the federally accepted standardized methods for identifying barriers. It's all very repeatable from place to place. Even if Lake Michigan is not your source like it is for us, maybe, you know, the Wisconsin River is your source, or Lake Superior, or who knows what. It's all very applicable and almost seamless to transfer from one region to another.
I've seen what they've done with what looks like small projects where they've been doing a lot of culvert work on the little streams that feed this main river, and that has improved the flow of the water. I'm sure there are fish that have come up in there now to spawn in spring. Last year I fished the stretch from the bridge up above there through all this shallow, fast water, and in about 2 hours I had 40 fish or better. There's just everything they've done is, as far as I'm concerned, is money well spent.
Conservation has to be something that's passed down from generation to generation, and even if, you know, kids don't end up working in the field of natural resources or something like that, they can keep tabs on things for us. You know, there has to be that mindset for these types of things to be a long-term solution. You know, we can go in and pull dams and fix culverts all we want, but if 25 years from now the next generation doesn't care about that stuff, you know, all those fixes could be reversed or made even worse. You know, it has to be something that's hereditary for long-term success to really be there. But kids, you know, nowadays, you know, right now when they're out there, you know, they can get out there, they can go fishing, they can see the valuable natural resources that we have right out in our own backyard.